Welcome, everyone. It's 3 minutes after, and I don't want to take away any time from our presenter today. So we're expecting a number of folks to join us, and we'll see them in just a few minutes as they join. My name's Ben Underwood. I'm serving as the president of the Western North Carolina chapter of AFP. Thanks so much for being here today. It's my honor to serve as the chapter's president and to be of service to you and to the region of fundraising professionals. If you ever want to talk to somebody on the AFP board, I encourage you to reach out to me. The email address is president@afpwnc.org. You can always find me on the afpwnc.org website as well. I want to mention a few items, and then I'll introduce our excellent speaker today. We have a members only event that's happening immediately after this. So at 1:30, we'll transition from this event to the members only event. It is free, but it does require registration. If you have not registered, I'll drop the link in the chat so that you can do so and join us at 1:30. In addition to that, I want to mention our April program. It'll also be on the 17th, April 17th, at our normal time of 11:30. Our very own Alex Comfort is presenting a session on how to navigate your career in fundraising. Many of you know Alex, and we all respect his wisdom in this area. So I'm excited about that program and learning some tips for Alex on how to swim in these sometimes complicated waters. In addition to Alex's program on the 17th, we'll also have another members only gathering following that. We want to offer some benefits to our members that aren't available to anyone else. And these opportunities to gather are just that. And they are a substitute for what we so enjoy when we're able to meet in person, the informal conversations and the networking that we all engage in. So please join us both today and on April 17th. I also want to thank our sponsors. We were very fortunate to have a number of sponsors in 2021. Our title sponsor is UNC Asheville. Our leadership sponsor is Western Carolina University, And we have two underwriter sponsors, AB Tech and the Community Foundation of Henderson County. So thank you to all of those incredibly generous sponsors that are allowing the chapter to continue to function and be strong. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Diane Carlson, who is speaking to us today on managing the ask, essential steps when soliciting major donors. Diane is a natural-born leader and entrepreneur with decades of fundraising experience in nonprofit consulting. Diane's leadership has resulted in partnering with clients to raise several $billion. She's sought after for her creative solutions to fundraising challenges, nonprofit strategic direction, ethical fundraising practices, and the ability to lead clients to success. Prior to co-founding Catapult Fundraising, Diane served as the chairman of IDC and the founder of 121 Philanthropic Solutions. She's one of the few people who have received awards from 2 AFP chapters, New Jersey and Las Vegas. And she is the past president of the AFP New Jersey chapter and a past board member of AFP Global Foundation Board. And she's the first female chair of the American Association of Fundraising Council, which you might know is the Giving Institute. So without any more preamble, let us welcome Diane Carlson. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon and to share one of my very favorite topics, managing the ask. Often wealthy people say the reason they don't give more to charity is because they are not asked. And you and I know as professionals that's probably true. They're not asked. So we're going to talk about today how to solicit major donors, and especially how to educate and inform donors to be comfortable with making a major gift. So let's start with what we often hear. Major gifts are about relationships. You hear this, I hear this. I believe it's true, but I want to talk for a minute about what are we talking about here? We're talking about when you build a relationship, the first thing that you have to do, whether it's in your personal life or your business life, is build trust. It's all about trust. And it's really critical that we understand that it takes time to build trust. And often I found in my career that some CEOs and board members do not understand that fundraising is not a snap of the fingers. Major gift solicitation is a lengthy process often, and it takes building trust. And trust, once we build trust, we build loyalty for a long time from a donor. So while often we think that we're going for a major gift, what we're going for from a wealthy person is we're going for giving for life. And that takes time to build, and it requires enormous trust. I want to talk with you about the 4 right rule. We always say at Catapult, the 4 right rule is what we have to be sure we have in place prior to a major donor solicitation. And that's the right person asking the right prospect for the right amount at the right time. The 4 right rule. And this has to be in alignment. We can't be having the wrong person asking the right person for the wrong amount, etc. I'm sure you get this. All right. I think that one of the things that's gone by the wayside in fundraising to some degree that I feel very strongly about is that regardless if it's an annual fund program or a campaign, it's important to build a gift chart. And I want to show you why. This becomes the roadmap for the gifts you have to raise. And I want to also share with you some of the ratios. And this is true whether it's a campaign or it's an annual fund program. So let's start here. We need to raise at least 50% of our goal, whatever that goal is, from the top 10 gifts. And that's a fact. That's the science of this. How we do it is some of the art form, but the science of it is that we need at least 50% of our dollar goal from the top 10 gifts. If we don't do that, we're going to have trouble raising our entire goal. We need our lead gift, and I'm showing you 10 million just because it's easy to see the numbers and see the ratios. We need our lead gift to be 20%, or in this case, $2 million of the 10 million, 20% of the goal. And if it turns out that you don't have a lead gift of 20% of the goal, maybe you have a lead gift of 10% of the goal, it doesn't mean that you're not going to raise the money. It means that it's going to take longer. And this is especially true in annual support planning, because you only have a year to raise it. Whereas at a campaign, you could have multi-years to raise it. So especially in an annual fund program, you have got to figure out, do you have a lead gift of 20% of your goal? Because you don't have time to build a long-term relationship in annual fund. And if you don't have that, I think you're going to have a very hard time raising your goal. What we're talking about here is the top 10 gifts, 1 at 2, 1 at 1, 3 at 500, 5 at 250. On a $10 million goal, that's a very comfortable way to plan this for 58% of the goal. Most of the time when we plan these, we like to have them equal at least 60% of the goal. Why? Because it's safer for, especially in a campaign, it's safer. Also, if we can get 60% of our goal from our top 10 gifts, we can shave off some of the fundraising time. And fundraising time is expensive. You know, I think sometimes we don't really count the costs, but the fact is the longer we take to raise a goal, the more expensive it is. And then I want you to look at the green, the hundreds and the 50s. We need 10 hundreds, 20 50s, 20% of the goal. And the green always needs to be 20% of the goal. The numbers may not be 100 and they may not be 50, but that level, that mid-level, needs to be 20% of the goal. So let's say that we have 60% of the goal at the top. We have 20% of the goal in the middle, mid-level gifts. All right, we have 80% of the goal, which is very safe, because once we get down into less than $5,000, we don't really raise a lot of money. We raise 1 to 2% of the goal always from less than $5,000. So to put your budget to the low end of the donor pyramid, to put your low end of the gift chart, to put a lot of budget there is really not good use of budget. Your budget needs to go to raising larger gifts. How to identify major donors? People ask me that a lot. Well, the first place to go is who are the previous donors? Who's given before? Because they're going to be your best prospects. Recent lapsed and current donors, of course, are the best prospects. But first look at who's been in the game before here, and then start looking at new prospects. I always say that some of the easiest fundraising in my experience is medical center fundraising, and I've done some of that in my institutional side, is because you get new prospects coming through the door every day, grateful patients. Some of you are in a situation where you don't have a lot of new prospects showing up at your door. You may be serving people that don't have the capacity to be major donors. And so you need to be more creative about finding prospects. One of the ways to do that is, who are the stakeholders in your community, in your region, that would be interested in what you do? Okay, what information do you need to get ready to solicit? Well, the first thing you need to find out, we need to remember this is major gifts. You need to know the wealth capacity of somebody. And there's a number of wealth capacity rating companies around the country that are superb, and you really ought to be using one of them. Our company uses Donor Search, but there's several of them that are very, very good. And you've got to start with, where's the money? Because that's really what you're looking for here. You also will need materials for solicitation. You'll need some digital, you'll need some print. I know some organizations that have mostly gone to digital. I think there's some prospects that relate well to that, and I think there's some prospects that relate better to print. Okay, let's determine capacity and interest, because what we have got to have to solicit a major gift and get a result with it is we've got to have both wealth capacity and interest. And we need to take the time to cultivate people. That goes to that relationship building, and build interest and relationships. Okay, look at the wealth and interest quadrant. I know you've seen this before. Okay, we have high wealth, low interest, high interest, low wealth, high wealth, high interest, low wealth, low interest. See the quadrant. Okay, which is the quadrant that is the best for major gift work? High wealth, high interest, right? Yep, that's right. Okay, what's the next best? High wealth, low interest, right? Okay, let's forget about high interest, low wealth, and low wealth, low interest as we look at major gift solicitation. There's other methodologies we use for those. That is not major gift methodology. High wealth, high interest is where we really want to start. And we look at our gift chart and we say, okay, we've got high wealth, high interest. Now you would use a wealth screening system, such as a Donor Search that we use. What we do is we start with a quick and dirty donor search. If they come up in the ones, anywhere in the ones, then we have a research team that profiles them further. Very lengthy profiles on previous giving, personal history, business history, etc. But let's talk about interest. The way we look at interest is we first start with how many times has a person given to your organization? Does it matter the amount? How many times? And so with wealth capacity, our best score is a 1. With interest, our best score is a 5. From 1 to 5, the best score for interest is a 5. Therefore, our best prospects are a 6. See how that works? And we find that very helpful and very easy for particularly board and volunteers to understand. Okay, how to determine the ask amount? Okay, several ways. One is our wealth capacity research. Another is our gift chart. Our ask amounts need to blend with the gift chart because we can't get off track with the gift chart. Are they showing high interest, moderate interest? Have they come from low interest, which is, is this a first gift? Is this a 10th gift? Where does this gift line up for this prospect? Is this a prospect that is a new philanthropist, not used to this, not used to giving money away? And we're going to talk more about that as we go. But often we are dealing with people with high wealth capacity who are interested in our organization, have been giving at a low level, well below their wealth capacity, but have no idea how to make a major gift. And I think it's just critical as professionals that we understand we are going to have to educate and inform before we can make an ask. We cannot just charge out there and start asking. It's just not going to work. We're going to get no's. And the last thing we want to do is get a no if we can possibly get a yes. So we use the wealth capacity rating that we get from Donor Search in our case. We use the previous gift history. We look at other giving of the prospect to other organizations. If they've given $2 million, two $1 million gifts to their university, okay, I know then that they are comfortable with $1 million giving. They may not want to give $1 million to XYZ organization, but we know they're comfortable with certain giving levels. If we look at the gift history of the person or the company or the foundation, and we don't see the gift level we're looking for, we see a much lower comfort level with this prospect in general giving, then we know that several things could be possible. One is they're not very well educated in how to make a major gift, even though they have the wealth capacity for it. And also they may just really not have that much interest in being donors. So we have to take the time to find out what is the answer to that question. Who should be the solicitors? I like 2 solicitors for a major donor prospect. And the reason I like that is, first of all, we want the prospect to like one of our solicitors. The other reason I like it is because while one is talking, the other can be listening. The other can be watching body language more closely. And it's just a nice way to do a solicitation. Also, if you're using board members or other volunteers, sometimes a staff person and a volunteer can be a very comfortable way to do a solicitation. Work out ahead of time what is the role of each of the solicitors. Usually what I do is, before COVID, I would have breakfast with the solicitors before they go on a solicitation visit. And I would work out, okay, who's going to say what? Who's going to handle the chatter first? Who's going to keep control of the chatter so you don't lose your time with chatter and never get to what you're there for? So work out who's got what role. Choosing the right person to make the appointment. The right person to make the appointment is the one who can get it. And sometimes that's a staff person, sometimes it's a volunteer, but most of the time we're trying to start getting an appointment by telephone. And so we need to get to know gatekeepers. We need to have planned how we would handle if we get a gatekeeper, an assistant, or how we will plan if the prospect, his or herself, actually answers the phone. Okay, how to get an appointment. the first thing you need to do is think through, okay, what am I hoping for? I want to get an appointment. I want to talk with you. That can be in person. I think we'll get back to that in due time, but it certainly can be virtual. Better to be virtual than be by telephone, especially for the first visit. Say the reason that you are calling. I'm calling to set up a time to speak with you about the exciting new things that are happening at the university, at the hospital, at our organization. I will need 45 minutes of your time to talk with you about this. And then you send an email confirmation that confirms the date and time of your visit. Also indicating if someone is coming with you, who is coming and their titles. I think it's really important that whatever time you have set, and I like 45 minutes, I think it's very difficult to do a first visit, even with a previous donor who knows you. I think it's very difficult to do a first visit in 30 minutes. And don't promise a time that you're not planning to keep. I think it's too long to say you need an hour. So I find 45 minutes is comfortable. If you know the prospect, or one of you knows the prospect, it takes a little more time because there's more chatter at the beginning about family, etc. Okay, let's talk now about the materials you need on the visit. And I mentioned this earlier. You need both digital materials and print materials because they will appeal to different donors. Also, sometimes you will do a visit with print materials and the prospect will say, I wonder if you could send this to me electronically. So you need both. And it doesn't work, in my opinion, to take a small tablet out with only digital and try to have several people looking at it. When digital first came into fundraising, some organizations were trying that. I don't like it. I think that touching something about a need, I think can be very powerful for the prospect. Okay, I want to talk with you now about the structures of the visit because they're different. On average now, it is taking 3 visits to close a major gift. And I'm going to talk with you about the purpose of each visit and also talk with you about what if you don't get it done in 3 visits. Okay, visit number 1. And this is whether this is a previous donor or someone who is new to your organization. Visit number 1 is for education information. You probably will not make your ask on this visit. You have to have your ask in your pocket so that if the prospect who's used to some of this and may know the organization well says, well, how much do you need? Then you need to have your answer. But generally speaking, this is a visit to re-engage a previous donor, to educate a new donor, and to tell the exciting things that have happened in your organization to a previous donor and a new donor. So this is the time when you're really doing your pitch, your presentation. You can bring along a PowerPoint if you want to do that. You can bring along some other handouts. But the purpose of this visit is to educate and inform. And especially this visit is important for the prospect who does not know how to make a major gift. You have got to coach this person toward a major gift and they're not going to say to you, I don't know how to do this. They are going to be very interested in this visit because they know they're not quite sure how to do this. And watch your time. You asked for 45 minutes. You take 45 minutes at the longest. And you make sure that you've allowed time for the introductory comments, chatter, that you've allowed time for your presentation, which should take about 15 minutes of the time. And then you have time for Q&A and relationship building. Plan to leave in 45 minutes. The only reason you would stay 15 minutes more is because the prospect asks you to. Otherwise, you leave. Okay, what is the result that you're trying to get out of this visit besides education and information? You're trying to get the next visit. That is the yes you are going for in visit number 1, to be able to talk again, preferably in another virtual or personal visit. It may have to go to a telephone, but it would be the best goal would be to be able to talk one more time. The prospect obviously probably will have questions in this visit number 1. Okay, if you knew the answers to them all, answer them in visit number 1. But it's best if you have some reasons to have to talk again in visit number 2. And be sure that for visit number 2, you are getting some new information for the donor, whether or not the donor asks for it. So you've got a story that should be able to go more than 15 minutes, which was visit number 1. Okay, story in visit number 2 probably is 10 minutes or so. Because if at all possible, in visit number 2, you want to make your ask. Now, this may not be possible, as I said, with new prospects that are either new to your organization or new to philanthropy. But generally speaking, you will be planning to see if there's a chance to make your ask, and you'll be gauging that. And that's the other reason that I like 2 people to go on a visit or on a virtual, is because you can be kind of gauging whether or not it's good to do the ask. Again, you have to watch your time. The most time you have here is 45 minutes. And I don't think that you have more than that. If you are doing telephone, you probably have 30 minutes. Telephone is usually shorter, and prospects expect telephone to be shorter. You do not do this by email. You do not do your follow-up to visit number 1 by email. You do not hand the prospect a gift commitment form. You keep that. It may not be the right time to have it signed, even if the prospect has agreed to a giving level. What's important to do in visit number 2 when you're doing your ask, let's say that you feel that visit number 1 went really well. Prospect is a previous donor, does know quite a bit about your organization. You were able to share new information. Now in visit number 2 with a previous donor, you are ready to make your ask. So I think it's important to emphasize that you would like this person to be a leadership donor. And some of you probably have, giving clubs or giving levels or something that you wouldn't use the word leadership. You would substitute the name of your level. But what you're looking for here is leadership gifts. That's it. That's what a major gift is. It's a leadership gift. And also, I think very important that you mention the donor recognition that is going to come to the prospect if the prospect makes this gift. So I always like to combine the ask with the donor recognition that the donor can expect. If it's capital campaign, it's easy to do this because you've got naming opportunities. If it's annual support, I think it's really important that if you're going to be asking for leadership gifts, you have a way to do leadership recognition. If you get to visit number 2, a couple of things can happen that can throw you off track. You can come to visit number 2, you think visit number 1 went really great. You talk to the prospect or you talk to the couple. And then you come to visit number 2 and new people show up. Adult children can show up. Financial advisor, legal advisor, other people can show up. If they do, you probably can't make your ask. You're going to need a 3rd visit. And so you really have to kind of start over. I think you don't want to make your ask unless the prospect encourages you by saying, how much are you looking for? What is it you need? Well, then the prospect has opened the door and signaled you that even with these new people here, it's okay to go ahead with solicitation. But if the prospect does not signal you, I think you need to be careful of trying to make your ask at this point. I've had this happen before, and I think you need to be careful. So let's assume, though, that nobody new shows up, and you think you have a decision maker here. And so you go ahead with your exact ask, and you frame it with donor recognition that the prospect can expect. And then you pause. Do not keep talking. This person may want to think about this. They maybe had a different amount in mind. And so it's really important that you stop talking and just have a pause and let the prospect say something. Sometimes if people are soliciting and nervous, they talk too much. Well, this is the time that the person gets to talk, the prospect. And the prospect could say, I wasn't expecting to make such a large gift. My daughter's getting married at the end of the year. I'm going to have some wedding expenses. I don't think I can do this gift. I have other pledge commitments to other organizations that I'm honoring. Whatever you hear, then you say, would it be possible for you to make this gift the year after your daughter's wedding? I have also sometimes said, you've mentioned having pledges to other organizations. When do you expect those pledge commitments to be fulfilled? Could you start this commitment at that time? And so you make your ask, you framed it with your donor recognition. The prospect has come back with some problem that she feels they have about making this particular gift. And so now you go into working with the prospect to find a comfortable giving level. Working
Diane,
with the prospect, yes.
I've gotten a couple of questions sent to me through the chat.
Yes.
Would you like to pause and field those, or do you want to save some time at the end?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Ben Festenfeld has asked about your scoring method you discussed earlier for prospects, that 1 was the best in terms of wealth. Can you say a little bit more about how you're scoring prospects?
We're scoring prospects for wealth capacity on a 1 to 5, with 1 being the best. And mostly we do that because 1 is the best in donor search. And then for interest, we have a scoring sheet, and 5 is the best, high interest. And then it goes down to 1. And so that's how we get to 6.
Gotcha. Does that answer your question, Ben? All right.
Did it?
Ben says yeah. Ben says yes. And
okay.
Leah Ross was asking about your tool for donor capacity, but that's donor search, correct?
That's what we use.
Do you have any words of advice about someone who's looking for a capacity rating tool?
I think talk to several companies. I think they're generally very good. We have used some others. Some of our clients use, we probably work with all of them because clients use them. I would say that in my experience, they've all been good. We happen to have liked donor search, and we've also liked the pricing of it because we have pretty high volume. But,
great.
I recommend you shop around.
Thanks for that, Diane. Sorry for the interruption, but I didn't want those questions to fall by the wayside.
No, interrupt again. Okay, so we are at visit number 2. We have been working with the prospect on how to make this particular gift level. The prospect then gets to the point where They just can't do this particular gift level, even if we wait until the daughter's married and until the other pledges are paid off. And so then we need to have a second ask planned. And our second ask is 3/4 of our first ask. And so we bring that out. Now we know the wealth capacity of this person. We don't know that they want to give it, but we know the wealth capacity pretty carefully. We know their income from research. We know their assets from research to the degree possible. So we're not making asks that aren't possible. We just have to have prospects who would like to make them. So your second ask is 3/4 of your first ask. If you have to go to a third ask, it is half of your first ask. So that is called your ask ladder. And you want to continue to talk with the prospect about being a leadership donor, however you put that. If you get a no, what are you doing here? You're going to find out, is it just no for now? Hopefully it's a no just for now. So then the question is, may I come back and talk with you in 6 months? May I come back and talk with you next year? I would like to continue to keep you informed. Visit number 3. Okay, visit number 3 is usually because you haven't been able to make your ask in visit number 1 or visit number 2. So you get to visit number 3 and you have to make your ask. You really have to, because you're not going to get a 4th visit. So I think you've got to go for it in visit number 3, unless it's just a situation that would just be too impossible. You get to visit number 3 and the prospect tells you, you know, my wife has breast cancer, my son has diabetes, you know, the prospect seems to be very preoccupied with some problem. Okay, you're probably not going to ever get to make the ask at this time. So then what you're doing is you're trying to work out a time that, may I come back and talk with you when it's more convenient for you. But you probably won't get visit number 3 unless the prospect continues to be interested. So you have that going for you. Your prospect probably has continued to express interest by taking this visit. You may have to do this visit by phone, and you may have to do your ask by phone. And I feel better to make the ask and not get it than not make it. I think this is your shot and you've got to take it. If you get a no, you're once again going for not now. May I meet with you again 6 months, next year, whatever. But I think you've got to take it. So when we talk about what is the purpose of visit number 3, it's to make your shot. You've got to do it. And if you don't get it done, something is really interrupting it, I think then you watch so that you don't get a no, and that you keep the door open for a future visit at a longer timeline. All right, I want to talk with you about how to keep control of the ask. I think you keep control of the ask by not being quick to give the person a pledge commitment card, a gift commitment card. You hang on to it. You may not bring it out at all in the visits. You'll just follow up with it after there's agreement on a gift level. If you do lose control of the ask, such as a prospect is very chatty and you never can really get the ask done, then I think that at some point you have to kind of interrupt and say, I wanted to be sure that we got a chance to talk about you're considering a leadership gift. And so you're framing this then that I want to be sure that I'm doing good things for you. I want to be sure that you have a chance to think about making a leadership gift. And so you then go on into your ask. Donor recognition and naming opportunities, they're easy in a campaign. They have got to be strong in annual support. And most of the time, honestly, they're weak. And also, what is donor recognition for an older person is not donor recognition for a 25-year-old. And so you really need to think through your donor recognition, and especially for annual support, start thinking through how long ago has it been that we developed this donor recognition plan, and doesn't it need updating? Because we have younger donors in the marketplace for us that are very different and are looking for very different donor recognition. All right, Ben, questions?
No more have come my way, but if we have any more, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or send them out to everyone in the chat.
Hi, Diane. My name is Rob Holtz. I'm actually visiting. I'm with Habitat for Humanity in Northeast Ohio, so it's good to be here. My question is, talking more about donor recognition opportunities for annual campaigns. Can you share a little bit about what some unique recognition opportunities that folks that you have seen or heard of that are specific to annual giving campaigns?
Well, I think for younger donors, you need to be using social media for donor recognition, because that's where younger donors live today. And so, putting donor recognition on the website or putting it in an annual report, a print annual report, isn't really where younger donors are today. And I think the best thing to do is to sound out some younger people that are in your database of the donor recognition that they would like, and start. Hopefully, you have some younger people that you're engaging with, and I think that more mature donors are used to print material recognition. They're used to website recognition. I also think that donor events, when we can get back to them, I think they help keep donors engaged. I think that also, in our experience, younger donors have related very well to the virtual events that some of our clients have held through COVID. One of our clients had a Valentine's Day event virtually, and they were in a local community, a region, and so they delivered a bottle of champagne and food. They had it delivered by a caterer. It went really well, and they had some 100 people on this that worked extremely well. And they had worked out with another nonprofit to do the catering and the delivery. But I think that younger prospects are going to be much more comfortable with some virtual events, and more mature donors are going to be more comfortable with in-person events when we can get back to them.
Diane, can I step in? My name's Alex Comfort. I'm a consultant. How do you feel about asking permission to make an ask? Getting into the process and saying, we're talking about a leadership gift. I wonder if it's appropriate now for me to go ahead and talk to you about the level of the gift we're considering.
I think that would work for some donors, yes. I've seen that done more in faith-based ministry giving with the ministries we work with than I generally see that. Is that your experience?
Yeah, it's been my experience too, but it's also that dreaded experience. As you were talking, I thought about all the times that something was amiss, i.e. you have 3 professional advisors sitting there, that kind of thing. And in that situation, I've used it with some success. And if they, if the accountant says, well, I need to put my 2 cents in, you go ahead and get it on the table by asking if it's an appropriate time.
Right. I see no harm in that. I think you would have to gauge if that's the appropriate thing to ask. I think one of the things you want to be careful of with that strategy is that you don't get shut out with your ask. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it has, and I don't give up.
Good for you.
You know, for one thing, if I get shut out with I just gave you as much money as I ever can, or I can't
Yes.
give you money, I say, well, is there anything else you'd be able to give? And that has had some success at some time. And sometimes if there are other people involved and I get shut out, I'll call them back up and say, okay, well, you had a lot of help with that. I wonder if it might be possible for the two of us to sit down and
Yes.
kind of chat and see how things went.
Yeah. I think your next visit, as I say, I think your next visit, if you have other people there, is trying to get the prospect to talk directly with you. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Diane, Terry Bowman here. I would like to know how you feel about the role of case statements and their use,
Mhm.
how long they should be, and sort of, give us some guidelines there.
Well, I feel strongly that you have to have it, a case statement. And I think the way I like to use a case statement is it's kind of the Bible of the need. It's the history of the organization. It's, fundraising is all about solving some problem. And if you're not going out to ask to solve a problem, which is your case, you're not going to do very well. So I think it's important in your case statement that you define the problem you are trying to solve and the solutions that you intend the fundraising will provide, the impact that's needed. Also, I like in a case statement a section that says, what happens if we don't raise the money? What happens if we can't step up to this need? And in COVID, with social service, that has become a very important question. And I think that's the basis then. It's, I never would give a case statement to a donor, but I would use that written document, no matter how long it is, to do my print materials and my digital materials. So, and my marketing, especially you've got to have marketing to support that case. So marketing is continuing to talk about need, problem, solution. And so I think it becomes, as I say, I think it becomes the Bible of your fundraising program.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Can I say a couple of questions I usually get? One is, can we ask for too much? That's a question I often get. I don't think so. If you have done your homework, and let's assume you've done your homework, and that you feel pretty confident in the dollar ask you're making, I think you go ahead and make it. And it's your chance to find out, did I shock the prospect? Was the prospect flattered by the ask, even if the prospect felt she could not make the ask? But if it's a number that you have really researched for this prospect, you go ahead and do it, because you usually can't negotiate up, but you can negotiate down. So. Any other questions? Okay, Ben.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just had one other question, a situation, and I was wondering how, you would typically handle something like this. Getting in front of a donor, you're prepared, you've done your homework, and you have an ask number in mind, and they say something like, I just want to enjoy this meeting today, this conversation. I want to let you know right away that I'm willing to give you this. So can we just get on, with having a nice dinner? That's happened to me once before, where that number came in significantly lower than what I was hoping to ask. And I didn't know how to pivot very well from that situation.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about when a donor maybe comes and starts the conversation by throwing out a figure that is not what you had in mind?
Yeah, I think this happens to us a lot. And that's a donor who is heading your ask off, right? That's what the donor's doing, whether they realize it or not. I think the next thing to say is, Barry, I certainly appreciate very much your consideration of $100,000. But I do want to mention that there are people that would certainly expect to see you make a leadership gift. Or it would be important to our organization if you would be able to step up to $1 million gift. And then you say, the donor recognition that is going to come with that. So it would be important that you are in our leadership giving circle on this project. It would be important that your name is on the gallery, on the rotunda. I think it's easier, in my experience, to raise sites with a campaign than sometimes it is with annual support. But that being said, I think you're talking about annual support. But I think you have nothing to lose but to go back to the prospect, talk back to the prospect and say, we were very hopeful that you would be one of the leadership donors in this project because, and say it, because you are the chairman of the board, because you were the chairman of the last campaign, because you are highly respected in our community, because, figure that out also before you start talking to the prospect, especially if you get to visit number 3 and that happens to you. Okay, where are you going to take that? So I think you have nothing to lose but to try to go up. If the prospect says, this is what I can do at this time, you say, well, we really appreciate that. We really thank you. That's terrific. But I think you've got to try.
Thank you.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Well, our time's almost up, Ben.
It is indeed. And we need to let people log off so folks who've registered can log back on for the members only event. I want to thank you, Diane, for a great presentation and discussion today. This was illuminating for me, and I know for many of my colleagues out there who are working toward major gifts. So we will wrap it up there. Thank you again, Diane. Thanks to each of you for joining us today. We'll see you again in just a few minutes and perhaps on April 17th, if not then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.